First off, I want to thank you all for joining. I'm excited to introduce you all to Opaque, the confidential AI platform that makes it possible for organizations to really harness the power of AI on their most sensitive data without, compromising privacy or compliance. A little bit about us. So we work with financial institutions, insurance providers, and really any enterprise in highly regulated industries that need to innovate with AI, but are seeing blockers, whether that's through security, data residency, or regulatory concerns. Our platform enables teams to safely train, deploy, and run AI models on encrypted data, unlocking use cases, whether that's customer service automation, fraud detection, internal knowledge base assistance, really any use case out there that allows you to leverage that AI information, AI data, all while meeting the highest standards of security and governance. In short, Opaque helps organizations move faster with AI while ensuring their data stays safe, private, and compliant. So I know we're all here for the webinar today, and we're excited to get right into it. As you may know, the agenda is going to be, how Opaque protects sensitive insurance data in AI workflows. We're going to give some real-world use cases for confidential AI adoption, and then we're going to be going through an actual demo of Opaque in action. Let's get into introductions here. My name's Clayton. I'm an enterprise account executive here at Opaque. Really, my role is to help customers understand and evaluate our solution. I'm here to partner with customers and uncover relevant initiatives that Opaque can help further and then guide them through the POC process. Joined here today is Soria and Jason. Soria, I'll turn it over to you here for an introduction.
Hi everyone, it's great to speak with you all. I'm Soria. I'm the solutions engineer here at Opaque, so helping from the technical end. I'll also be running the demo today as well. My background comes from cybersecurity. I'll pass it off to Jason.
Great. Hey everyone, I'm Jason, Director of Growth, focused on strategic accounts in highly regulated industries like insurance. I focus on large enterprises with a large breadth of sensitive data. They face the challenges of siloed data. Those silos could be business functions, technology platforms, borders for our global clients, regulatory constraints, right? It's almost impossible to keep up with regulatory constraints. And then a changing threat landscape, right? Almost impossible to keep up with that as well. So yeah, we're looking forward to setting the frame on what we're all about and then walking you through specific real world use cases. We're going to highlight two. One is a workers' comp fraud detection use case, and one is the generative AI use case in the executive suite, something that we call and our customers call C-suite RAG. So driving adoption in the C-suite with generative AI. Great. With that said, let's jump into it. Please, if you have any questions, put it in the chat. We want to have some interactivity with this. We'll answer those questions towards the end. We'll have a readout of those questions and then follow up with any documentation that is necessary. So yeah, looking forward to that. So as Clayton was mentioning, we are the leading confidential AI platform specifically designed for AI workflows, enabling you to unlock sensitive data that historically has been off limits. And what we are finding is that the sensitive proprietary data is really your biggest differentiator. And unfortunately, today, that data is locked down for good reason, right? And now you have this next big platform shift which is the rise of generative AI. And what we're finding is that demand for data is outpacing the supply of data. So you have this head-on collision between the demand for data and security concerns, privacy concerns, right? And with all due and good reason, right? And then furthermore, you're also seeing this rise of agents, which is really interesting as well. So that's just compounding the risk, right? Those agents can do a ton of damage, right? They have these human capabilities at machine speed. So risk is compounding tenfold. So what's happening, right? We actually saw in early 2025 a bit of a step back in AI adoption with agents as folks would figure out that agent strategy. We're also finding that 95% of projects are stuck in a pilot phase, meaning they're not even going into production. I'm sure you saw the MIT report that came out about 2 weeks ago. And I know that 95% is debated and it might not be that high, but even if it's 10% of that or 25% of that real number, that trend is a very scary trend for folks who are tasked with getting AI projects into a production state. So what else is happening? We're also finding that old school approaches are becoming quickly outdated in almost legacy. And what I mean by that is kind of that reactive approach is quickly dying, where now you need to enforce in real time, you need to prove in real time. What we're finding is that the new standard in AI security is verifiable trust, which we're going to showcase in the demonstration coming up. So that old school cybersecurity thinking around perimeter access ring fencing, it's no longer enough. And then on the privacy side, the data anonymization, the data masking is becoming obsolete, really with the rise in the attack vector of Gen AI as well, right? It's never been easier than ever before to de-identify a data set. So with Opaque, we've become that verifiable AI trust layer, as verifiability is becoming the new standard. And as expected, we're already seeing this being adopted in big tech. So it's starting to become standard infrastructure from Apple, from Microsoft, right? So Apple announced their private cloud offering, Microsoft, their Azure Confidential Compute, Meta with their WhatsApp and their private processing there. So what we're doing at Opaque is bringing this AI verifiable trust layer to you and to the masses. So you don't have to have this expertise in-house. So how does this work? Let's get into the how before we move to the demo. Right, our unique innovation, as Clayton mentioned, is that we can process confidential data with end-to-end encryption. But that's not where we stop. It doesn't stop there. There's a zero trust chain of events that happens all the way down the hardware stack, starting with remote attestation. So before anything happens, there's an integrity check. So that integrity check is checking your models, your agents, your data sources, making sure that everything is kosher before anything is processed. And if something was wrong, right, that would fail. You're going to see how that works with Soria's demo. And then during computation, not only does your data remain encrypted, but we also enforce your data policies that you configure at time of connection. We'll walk you through that as well. And then finally, after the fact, and this is great for insurance and these highly regulated industries, you have the verifiable proof with an audit trail, meaning every action is audited, every action is verified. You literally have a receipt that we're going to walk you through shortly. So just a little background on us. We come out of the RISE lab, which is a famous computer science lab out of Berkeley, which created Apache Spark, which became Databricks, right? We also created Ray, which became AnyScale. And then we're well positioned to take on the challenge of confidential AI. And I just want to highlight too, this is a critical problem to solve for. We are connected and partnered with the whole ecosystem. And that's anybody from NVIDIA to Microsoft, to Google, to AMD, to Intel, right? Accenture helps us out on the go-to-market side. We have a great insurance consortium that we partner with at Ristream, who I think are on this call as well. So it's going to take an army of folks collaborating to do this. We also have a confidential computing summit where everybody comes together to discuss how we're solving this problem. So essentially, Opaque has become the glue in this ecosystem, which we'll get into shortly as well. So maybe I've been talking a lot. Maybe I pass this slide over to Soria because I want her to set up the workflow with what this potentially looks like in this slide before we go right into the demo.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So this slide walks through what the workflow looks like in each phase of the workflow before, during, and after. So the first thing that happens is you connect your data sources, and these are encrypted locally, so the encryption key is held by the data owner. This ensures that no one else is able to see the data when it's uploaded. Again, the encryption key is held by the person that uploads the data. So these are some of the typical data sources we see. It's Snowflake, Databricks, we see Azure AI as well. So when you connect those data sources, there's an attestation process that takes place, and this verifies the integrity of the system. So when you're connecting, you're verifying the trusted execution environment, the models and the agents are exactly what you expect. So in this blue box, this is everything that Opaque is doing. And Opaque is doing the attestation process. When you upload that data, you also set policies around how the data can be used. So the policy enforcement happens in this blue box as well. And those two are really key because it is verifying that your data is only being used in the way that you're allowing it to. And all of this is running on top of confidential computing hardware, the trusted execution environment. And this allows for things like the encryption during processing. Um, for part C, so the output of this, there's several different ways that we're seeing customers use these outputs. Some are sending them to LLMs to do analysis. We have organizations collaborating on data that they before couldn't share. And then, like Jason mentioned, there's examples with C-level RAG, and I'll show an example of how one of our insurance companies are using this workflow.
Awesome. Okay, final slide before we go into the live action in the demo. Here are some common use cases that we're seeing within insurance. The two bottom ones are fraud detection use cases. One's on the workers' comp side with premium fraud audit detection, which we're going to show in just a moment. The other is life and annuities with a provider risk alert use case, which we can talk about. We're not going to show today. We're also going to focus on the top one, which is the Gen AI adoption across business functions such as legal, finance, and claims for the executive suite. What we're finding across our customers is that executives won't adopt AI workflows unless they can prove cryptographically that data stays private, policies are enforced, and compliance is auditable. So this is exactly what we're going to show you now with Soria.
All right, I can take the screen share. So the first example I'll show is a example of workers' comps. This is specific to one of the insurance organizations that we're working with. To give you some background for this insurance company, when they have their audit data, all of this data is stored in something like spreadsheets. It's really difficult to read. I can show you an example of what that might look like. So here there's a big list of different businesses. All of their information is stored in these columns and rows. And if there are any risk flags associated with a business, it's stored in the auditor's comments and free-form text. So firstly, this is really difficult to read. When a carrier needs to come into here to write reports on this information, they have to come in and manually pull out the information. To analyze any risk flags, they have to look at this free-form text column and try to pull out what the risk flags are from there. This is also pretty insecure for a couple reasons. One, this data is being emailed, it's being stored on desktops, so all of this information can be really easy for an attacker to access, for example. And two, whenever someone needs information specifically on business 10, for example, they have to pull up the spreadsheet with all of this information on it. So what Opaque is doing with this organization is allowing them to access this information through a chat interface in a secure way. So this looks like a pretty standard chat interface, but the key thing here is that it's running on Opaque workflows in the back end, which is allowing them to use this information, this very sensitive data, without being worried that there's going to be any data leakage. So we can see an example of how they could interact with the interface. So here you can say, give me a report on business 94. And previously, for an insurance carrier to come in and find this information, they would have to pull up that spreadsheet, look for the business 94 column, and then manually look through all of those data fields. But here we're able to see that the workflow outputs a report for that business. It includes the latest audit period, business information. It also pulls out those red flags. So this could be more accurate than someone having to go through that spreadsheet and look at the free-form text and try to pull that out for analysis. The workflow is able to do that. And again, this is done in Opaque, so it's done in a secure way. I'll move over to the Opaque UI here and show you how that works. So when you first log into Opaque, this is what you'll see. And the first step, as Jay and I mentioned, is to connect the data. So here is where that data connection would happen. So here you can see there's different data that's uploaded. And again, no one can see this data because it's encrypted by the data owner when it's uploaded. So when you're uploading the data or creating data connections, this one goes to Snowflake, for example, there's a trust piece that happens, and that's that attestation piece. So here you're seeing that the data is being attested when you upload it. Um, and then if any of them fail, like this, for example, failed, no one is able to use that data for any workflows. So you need to verify the data before it gets uploaded to the system. The next building block, so the data piece is like the first building block when building a workflow, and I can show you what that workflow looks like in a minute. But the next piece is the agents. So here you have like an ingestion agent or a summarization agent. So in the example we just saw, the summarization agent would be what's putting together the details from the spreadsheet into a more readable format. The third building block is the models. So these are the different models that can be used with Opaque. You can use third-party LLMs like OpenAI, but you can also use internally hosted VLLM, which increases the security because the data never has to leave your environment. It can be run within the Opaque workflow. All right, so these are the three building blocks, the data, the models, and the agents. And again, these are attested whenever you upload a data piece or create a data connection, and before you run each workflow, each of these pieces is attested. It's just verifying the integrity of the system so you know exactly what's running. And in the workspaces, this is the example we were just looking at with workers' comp fraud. Here you can see those building blocks put together to create the workflow that allows the carriers to interact with that chat interface. So here you have the chat input, which is taking in the prompt from the interface, the data retrieval tool or the ingestion agent. This is taking in the data that from the spreadsheet, and then you have the Python executor and the employer lookup agent, which is putting together the data and then writing out a report. So this is one example of how one of our customers is using Opaque workflow or the Opaque workflow to securely analyze their data. Again, this is done securely, so it's encrypted throughout. No one is able to see the data, and you have a audit report that verifies that. So if you come to the audit logs, you can see all of the data or all of the actions that were taken, as well as view a certificate. So this certificate can be verified with any third party to verify that no one was able to see the data. Another example that Jason had mentioned is the C-level RAG case. So I wanted to quickly touch on that. This is one that we're seeing with or across organizations. So not just insurance carriers, but across other sectors as well. But we've also seen insurance companies find this one very helpful. So for C-suite RAG, we have a customer that is using this for their chief financial officer. So currently when their chief financial officer needs information on the business, say in the last quarter or the last week, she would have to get that from different people. They would have to report that to her, or it's really difficult for her to get all of this information in one place and easily. So with this chat interface, she can put in a chat similar to what we saw with the audit example. So it would look something like this. And from there, she's able to access the financial data of this organization, which is very sensitive data, but you can do so in a secure way because the data is not at risk for leakage. So here we see the ingestion agent, so that's taking in that data, the summarization agent, which puts it together in a report, and it generates a response to her. So this is one that's been very useful across different industries as well as insurance. All right. Again, the last piece and the important piece of the process is the attestation piece and the audit log piece. These are really key, and it's actually allowed a lot of our customers to implement their AI projects much quicker because they can prove to their compliance teams that the data is attested and that no one can see the data when it's uploaded or used in processing. All right, Jason or Clayton, anything to add there?
Yeah, sorry, a few questions there. What do the certificates typically contain?
Yeah, that's a good question. We can also talk about if anyone is interested to talk about it in another demo, I would be happy to do that as well. But it basically contains any information that's like any actions that are taken. So here you can see examples like request a job review, submit jobs, anything like that. So it's really just logging any action that's taken, and then the certificate verifies it's signed by the hardware, so the CPU or GPU of the trusted execution environment, so it just verifies that no one was able to see the data follow this process.
Fantastic. And one more, we had a question along audit trails. Kind of what is the value for the end user and the company with audit trails? Can you just give a kind of a high level overview over that again?
Yeah, of course. That's a great question. The audit trails are really key because it allows for your compliance team to quickly verify what's going on. So for implementing AI projects, we're seeing a lot of AI projects are stuck and not able to be deployed because of the security concerns around data leakage with LLMs. So what the audit logs and the certificates allows you to do is um, audit all of the actions that are taken and verify that data wasn't leaked, and you're able to see any action that any person um, was taken as well. So it just allows compliance teams and customers to verify that their data wasn't leaked, which is really key because it allows for the acceleration of AI projects. We see customers use this from a perspective where if they have customers they want to offer AI insights to, this is helpful for them because their customers will trust them when they're able to see that this is all verified. Did that answer the question?
Fantastic. I think so. If not, I'm sure we'll get another message in the box. I know we have a little time left here. We might wrap up early, but I think it would be beneficial to review some of the really good questions that we had come in. Especially along the lines of production. We had a question come in that said, can you walk us through, how insurers are actually realizing these gains in productions? So what we see is that by eliminating manual data masking, these lengthy compliance reviews and siloed processing, Opaque's actually going to go out and shorten project timelines dramatically. We've seen with our customers that they're experiencing 4 to 5 times in faster deployment. We'll see, anywhere from like a 60 to 70% lower deployment costs, as well as anywhere from 50 to 60% in lower operational costs. So that's kind of how we touch on production and reduce cost.
And if I can add to that, Clayton, just a little, we've been described from our customers that this is really the only right way to do this in this new age of AI. And you go down the line, right? Basically, by implementing this approach, your security posture is going to increase. The model accuracy is going to increase as well because you're going to keep that data fidelity. You're not, masking that data, which impacts the accuracy of the model. You're going to reduce that overhead up front, as Clayton just described. It's a pain to do masking and anonymization, and again, that's not foolproof in this day and age. And then finally, you're going to get the verifiable guarantee as part of the approach, as literally as you just saw, as part of the UI in the platform itself. So to us, it's really around AI enablement. It's that being that trust layer and having that speed to market. Right, we're in a fast paced kind of race, and it's super competitive. So let's get those models into production and get those projects into production as fast as possible.
Perfect. And I think maybe the last one I'll touch on, and then Jason, I'll turn it over to you here. Really good question. What's actually required on the customer side to get Opaque up and running? Short answer, very little. Opaque is going to be turnkey. There's no rip and replace, no retraining. All major cloud providers already provide these confidential computing primitives. Essentially, we layer on top. So you deploy Opaque in your existing environment, and the lift on your end is essentially nothing beyond spinning up the software. You keep your stack, and Opaque's going to extend it with its verifiable confidentiality. From a POC process too, it's completely guided on our end. There's ways in which we can handle that, whether that's deploying in Opaque sandbox environment, deploying in your own sandbox environment in a non-production environment, and then obviously working through into deploying in a production environment post POC. Typically, we see POCs last anywhere from 2 weeks to 30 days to 3 months in some cases. Really depends on the use case and what you're trying to target.
And maybe just to add to that one too, Clayton, the reason why we showed you the two use cases that we showed you is because they are common, they're repeatable, everyone has them. And it really is as simple as connecting the data sources. And for not even for executives, for leaders of a business, function or people within that business function, a really easy, lightweight starting point is a dialogue with your data, right? Because you have these reports. Some of these reports, sharing across business functions or business units. There's risk to that. This is just a nice way of layering on some Gen AI functionality to data sources that are already there, that are already floating around. It doesn't necessarily have to be like connections with your Databricks or your Snowflake. I do have clients who are not so technical, and they're uploading a CSV or a spreadsheet, like you saw that Soria showed with an Opaque. So yeah, it really kind of spans in terms of technical know-how versus some real technical folks. Everyone across that spectrum.
Excellent. I think that's all. We'll wrap up a little early today. As a follow-up, we'll send out a webinar recording and then reach out to you all with that. From here, if it seems like there's some initiatives that are ongoing that Opaque can further, we're more than happy to have a conversation around those, or just even do a deeper dive on a tailored session with you. Other than that, Jason, Soria, if there's nothing else on your end, I think we can wrap up, and we really do appreciate everyone's time today.
Yeah, this was fun. Thank you. Thank you, guys.